Hello and welcome to another episode of Bossing English with Mr. F. Today we're going to be looking at story openings, first lines from famous novels to see how those writers hook the reader and pull them into the story. This is, of course, in relation to Language Paper 1, Question 5, when you may be asked to write a narrative. Before we get going, 2 top tips for writing stories. Number 1, read, read, and read. Whatever you read, whether it's horror fiction, fantasy, sci-fi, normal literary fiction, short stories, comics, manga, even the newspaper, all of it will be helping you with your writing skills, how to vary your sentence types, how to structure a story, even if it's a football report, which can be quite interestingly done, how to use punctuation in interesting and varied ways. That's the number 1 best way to improve your creative writing. The second top tip is to make sure that your writing is always vivid and varied. Vivid in terms of imagery and senses and metaphors and similes, and varied in terms of punctuation, sentence lengths and paragraphing. We'll be looking at that more in subsequent videos. Okay, let's look at some famous opening lines. It was a bright cold day in April and the clocks were striking 13. This is from 1984, George Orwell, and what makes it brilliant in terms of hooking the reader is that 13. We have a fairly standard sentence until we get to 13, when we have a reason to read on to find out what's happened in this world. Marley was dead to begin with. Okay, we're already showing an examiner, if we're Charles Dickens, that we can use a colon in a very creative way. And obviously most people would write that sentence the other way around, starting with, to begin with, Marley was dead. This way, we have fantastic intrigue into how will this dead person come back to life. It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. Everyone knows that a single man who's rich must be in want of a wife. So Jane Austen is using, this is the opening line from Pride and Prejudice, brilliant use of dramatic irony, to kind of give an authorial voice, kind of teasing what are taken to be truths in the world she lives in. So she's kind of, light mockery of the world in which she has set her story. The past is a foreign country. They do things differently there. L.P. Hartley, The Go-Between, one of the most famous first lines of any novel. Again, fantastic use of a semicolon, showing a link between these 2 simple sentences. Great metaphor. The past is a foreign country. Just wonderful. This one's more modern. His children are falling from the sky. Who is his? How come his children are falling from the sky? Well, it's Hilary Mantel, Bring Up the Bodies. So we know that this is set in Tudor times. And we know that Henry VIII struggled to have children. So maybe children is a metaphor for something, and we're going to find out what. Again, fantastic way to pull the reader in with a mystery and intrigue and a reason to read on to find out what's the truth behind that sentence. His children are falling from the sky. He watches from horseback acres of England stretching behind him. They drop, gilt-winged, each with a blood-filled gaze. Grace Cromwell hovers in the thin air. She is silent when she takes her prey, silent as she glides to his fist. But the sounds she makes then, the rustle of feathers and the creak, the sigh and a riffle of pinion, the small cluck-cluck from her throat, these are sounds of recognition, intimate, daughterly, almost disapproving. Her breast is gore-streaked and flesh clings to her claws. Later, Henry will say, "Your girls flew well today." Brilliant for lots of different reasons. We get some varied punctuation. We get a lot of vivid imagery in terms of the use of the 5 senses, the creak, the sigh and riffle of pinion, the small cluck cluck, all those sounds. We get imagery. Her breast is gore-streaked. And then in the second paragraph, we get a flash forward. Later, Henry will say, "Your girls flew well today." Some direct speech to show that they know how to punctuate speech correctly, and a brilliant device structurally to suddenly flash forward to later. Just very, very clever. Okay, so hopefully that's been useful. hit like, smash subscribe, or whatever you do, and we'll carry on